Trước khi bắt đầu, nếu bạn đang tìm kiếm sách để học IELTS hiệu quả, thì đây là những cuốn sách chúng mình khuyên dùng. Nó có thể giúp bạn đạt điểm IELTS từ 7.0 tới 8.0. Bạn hãy xem ở phần giỏ hàng trong kênh nhé.
Part 1. You will hear a customer phoning a record shop about a vinyl cleaning service.
Hello, Sound Vault Records, cleaning desk. How can I help?
Hi, I'm calling to ask about getting some vinyl records cleaned.
Certainly. We offer two options. Manual cleaning is for light dust, and ultrasonic cleaning is for deeper dirt. How many records are you thinking of?
Around 25, and some are pretty grimy.
In that case, the ultrasonic option is usually best.
Okay, ultrasonic. I've never used a professional cleaning service before, so I'm a bit unfamiliar with the process. What exactly happens when I bring them in?
First, we check each record under a strong lamp to spot scratches and any label damage.
Right, and who does the work?
We have 3 technicians. They're easy to identify because they wear grey shirts.
Good to know. Do they need any special qualifications?
Yes, anyone working in the cleaning room must provide a reference, and we give full training on safe handling.
Great. Is it quick?
We keep batches small, rather than piling everything in at once. While we set up the machine, customers usually have a short viewing session so they can ask questions about specific records.
Nice. And after washing, how do you dry them?
They go into a filtered drying cabinet so dust doesn't settle back on the surface.
Sounds professional. Anything I should bring?
Please bring the records in their sleeves, but remove plastic outer covers. Also, if any titles are valuable, bring a priority list so we can handle those first.
Okay. Should I label anything?
That's optional. We will still count the total and confirm it with you at drop-off.
Good. I just want to make sure nothing gets mixed up.
We understand. We keep your batch together and log it under your name. If any sleeves are torn or handwritten, mention it and we will note it carefully.
Great.
And bring a sturdy box or bag, something firm that won't bend.
No problem. When can I pick them up?
Standard turnaround is 2 working days, so if you drop them off on Thursday, they'll be ready on Monday.
Great. How much does it cost?
Ultrasonic cleaning is £3 per record.
Perfect. I'll book a drop-off slot then.
Great. Tell me which morning suits you and I'll reserve a time. We open early so you can come in before work if that's easier.
Part 2. You will hear a service update from City Transit about a tram disruption on the Green Line.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a service update from City Transit about the tram disruption affecting the Green Line between Harbour Square and East Bank. The work is essential track maintenance, and it will run from this Saturday morning until the following Wednesday evening. Before I explain the alternatives, there are 2 reasons we strongly recommend checking this update before you travel. You might think the app is for getting a discount on travel fares, but standard rates still apply. And while it doesn't list every single temporary stop, those are clearly signposted on the streets anyway, it is essential because it helps you choose the quickest alternative route. Second, rather than warning you about unexpected ticket checks, the update shows when services are busiest, so you can plan around crowded periods if you have flexibility. What difficulties should you expect? We have ensured that announcements inside the trams remain clear, and we actually have extra staff, not fewer, working on the platforms this week. However, the most common issue is actually delays caused by road traffic, especially around Central Bridge, where buses share lanes with general vehicles. Another issue is that some passengers will have longer walking distances, because a few temporary stops cannot be positioned exactly outside the normal tram platforms. Mobile phone signals at stations shouldn't be affected by the power works, but some journeys will feel slower than normal. Now, let us go through the travel options. First, we are running replacement buses between Harbour Square and East Bank. You don't need advance registration to use these. However, because of the roadworks, they cannot use the Riverside corridor, so they follow a completely diverted route compared with the usual tram line. Second, if you prefer to avoid the roads, you can use local train services between Harbour Square Station and East Bank Station. If you're worried about costs, you won't need to go online to claim automatic refunds because the train operator simply accepts tram tickets at no extra cost for that section. Third, we have created a temporary tram stop at Riverside for passengers travelling to the university and the sports centre. We tried to put it right outside the main gates, but due to safety barriers, accessing it may involve a short walk of about 5 minutes from the nearest junction. Fourth, if you drive part of the way, the Park and Ride site at Northgate will operate with extended hours. The parking lot is open all day, but please note the actual shuttle bus to the city centre runs only during peak hours, because outside those times demand is too low. Fifth, cyclists should note that we are trialling a cycle shuttle trailer attached to selected replacement buses. You don't need to book this, but be aware it has strictly limited space for bicycles, so at busy times you may need to wait for the next bus. Finally, we are setting up an assistance desk at Harbour Square and East Bank. They won't handle refunds, but the service includes staff support at key points, helping you find the correct bay, advising on accessibility routes, and arranging boarding support for passengers who need it. You can see live updates in the City Transit app, on platform posters, and on our website. Thanks for listening.
Part 3. You will hear two students, Sam and Noor, discussing a draft risk assessment for a laboratory practical and deciding how to improve it before submission.
Okay, Noor, shall we go through our risk assessment for the lab practical and tidy it up before we submit it?
Yes, I reread the first draft last night. I originally thought we might have to add more background research, but the theory is actually fine, and we certainly shouldn't remove any of the control measures we've listed. The main problem is that it is hard to follow. We jump from hazards to controls and then back again. We need a clearer structure with headings that match the marking guide.
Right. I also worry we left something out.
We did. We covered chemical spills and broken glass, but we completely missed a key category. We did not include manual handling. Carrying boxes of samples is a hazard on its own, and it is mentioned in the checklist.
True. And the responsibilities section sounds vague. We wrote, staff will monitor, without saying who exactly.
Exactly. Responsibilities must be specific, like demonstrator checks boggles or technician locks storage. Otherwise, the assessor cannot tell if it is workable.
About the scoring, I had a couple of issues. First, I got confused with the likelihood scale. I used rare to almost certain, but then I completely mixed up the numbers when I copied them into the table.
So a 4 became a 2.
Yes, in 2 rows. Also, I misunderstood a term in the policy. It says reasonably practicable, and I thought that meant easy, but it actually means balancing risk against time, trouble, and cost.
Good catch. That explains why some of your suggested controls are unrealistic.
So, what should we fix first?
Structure, definitely. If we group hazards by category, then list existing controls, then additional controls, it will read logically.
Agreed. We should keep the same order in the table so the reader can track each hazard to its score. Also, why do people ignore safety notices anyway? Is it because the signs are placed too high on the walls?
Not really, they're usually at eye level, and it's not that the wording sounds too informal either. Usually, it's because the messages are simply too long. If a sign is packed with text, students do not read it. Short instructions work better.
That reminds me of the handrail example from our lecture. When the rail was placed closer to the stairs, more people used it without thinking. It just shows how a tiny design change can shape behavior.
Yes, and we can apply that. Put glove bins beside the benches, not at the door.
One more thing. Are our controls specific enough? I mean, are they going to be too expensive for the department to implement?
Cost isn't the issue, and I don't think they are too strict for students to follow. The real worry is that they are just too vague for them to be checked. For instance, we wrote provide training, but did not say when or how we will check it happened. Controls need to be measurable.
So we should state a briefing at the start and note who delivers it. What about fire safety? Should we leave it out entirely?
No, the assessor will look for it, but we don't need to research it in detail either. The building already has a separate fire plan, so we should just summarize it briefly, perhaps just mentioning alarms and exits.
Okay, and in responsibilities, we should assign who checks PPE at the start.
Yes, the demonstrator can check goggles, and the technician can make sure chemicals are locked away after. For the scoring table, I will correct the 2 swapped likelihood rows, then check the scale runs the same way throughout.
Right. Instead of buying new equipment, we can improve layout and procedures.
And we can add a simple tick sheet for key checks, like gloves on, goggles fitted, and benches cleared. That way, the controls are recorded, and we can show the assessor clear evidence.
So next, we'll plan the final layout and decide the order, then rewrite the weak sections.
Yes, let's do that now, then proofread for clarity and consistency.
Part 4. You will hear part of a lecture about coastal upwelling shifts and their effects on marine ecosystems.
Good morning, everyone. Today I am going to talk about coastal upwelling shifts and why seemingly small changes in their timing and strength can have surprisingly large consequences for our oceans. Upwelling is the critical process that draws freezing, highly nourishing currents up to the surface, usually along the western edge of a continent. It matters deeply because it delivers essential nutrients to the upper sunlit layers, which in turn increases microscopic plant growth and ultimately feeds entire marine food chains. First, why do we care so much about these specific zones? In a healthy upwelling region, the cold water reaches the top and fuels massive blooms of plankton. Those conditions support large populations of zooplankton, fish, seabirds, and marine mammals. In other words, upwelling contributes to the world's seafood supply far beyond its limited geographic area. Even though these specialized coastal regions cover only a tiny fraction of the global ocean, perhaps less than 2%, they can produce a remarkably large share of the fish that end up in our markets. This happens partly because the local food web is incredibly efficient when those deep-sea nutrients arrive at exactly the right time of year. So, what exactly is changing? In many classic upwelling systems, seasonal winds blow along the coast in a highly consistent direction. When these strengthen, they literally push the surface water away from the coast, which then allows the deeper, colder water to rise up and replace it. This wind-driven transport is sometimes referred to by oceanographers as Ekman transport, and it is the primary reason upwelling is so tightly linked to broader weather patterns. However, modern observations from several key coastal regions suggest that these wind patterns are changing, not just in their overall strength, but crucially in their timing. Instead of starting reliably at the exact same point in spring, the calendar for the entire ecosystem is being rewritten. This means the onset of this vital process is no longer entirely predictable. Because this directly affects the seasonal schedule of biological events, scientists formally refer to this change in timing as a phenological shift. Now, let us consider the severe ecological effects of this altered schedule. Many local fish species have evolved to time their spawning perfectly so that their larvae hatch precisely when food is most abundant. If the upwelling process starts late, the corresponding plankton peak will also be delayed. Consequently, the young fish may completely miss their main food window. That critical mismatch can drastically reduce survival rates for the entire generation, even if the total amount of nutrients delivered over the whole year remains somewhat similar. At the same time, we face issues with ocean warming. Elevated temperatures in the upper layers of the sea can promote the growth of toxic algal blooms. These harmful events can force the closure of commercial shellfish farms and create dangerous toxins that move rapidly up through the entire food web. Another widespread response we are currently seeing is physical movement. Some marine species attempt to adjust to the warming by actively shifting their geographic range, migrating poleward or into deeper waters to follow the cooler environments that still suit their physiological needs. This mass migration can severely alter who competes with whom in coastal ecosystems. Finally, how do researchers actually study these complex shifts? We combine direct physical measurements from anchored coastal buoys with advanced satellite observations. The buoys record precise wind speeds and water temperatures, giving us a detailed local time series. Meanwhile, satellites from space can map sea surface temperatures on a global scale, and they also help us directly infer circulation patterns, clearly showing exactly where the surface water is being transported offshore. In addition, specialized ocean color sensors allow us to estimate chlorophyll levels, which act as a very useful proxy for measuring overall plankton biomass. By putting all these diverse data streams together across many decades, we can better anticipate how future climate regimes might permanently reshape these vital coastal ecosystems. The ultimate goal of this research is not merely to describe the changes taking place, but to thoroughly understand the underlying mechanisms. This knowledge is essential for coastal managers who rely on early warning indicators such as sudden temperature anomalies to guide fishing quotas and conservation efforts before major ecological impacts appear.